So the brand new TSR3 and the also brand new TSR2. So how do these heads actually compare? Is the 3 longer? Is the 2 straighter and more forgiving? Well, today we're going to do an in-depth comparison, head-to-head test, and we're going to find out. Welcome back to Elite Performance Golf Studios, and today we've got another super exciting test, and that is the TSR3 up against the TSR2. So both the brand new heads from Titleist. Obviously they've got the 4 as well. I don't have that yet, but I will, so stay tuned. But today it's the 3 versus the 2. Now, similar to the last video that I just released, which if you haven't seen it, was the TSR3 against the older TSI3. It's a very in-depth performance-based test on quad, where we're really going to test these heads out and see how they perform against each other. Like, is the perception true that obviously the 3 being more of the player's model is lower spin, less forgiving, harder to keep in play but longer? Is the 2 more friendly, more forgiving, more helpful but maybe not quite as long? Is that perception actually true? We'll find out. We're going to be touching on obviously looks of the drivers as well. The 2's really updated. It's much nicer now. Looks, sound, feel, all that kind of stuff. Very in-depth, on quad. All this is going to be interesting. Right, so we're diving straight into it. And first up, we have the TSR2. And obviously, we can't go any further without touching on just the looks and the update of this driver. So obviously, with the 3, we didn't really expect much different. It's very classic Titleist, that classic shape. The old 2 was always quite kind of elongated, a bit bulbousy, kind of, I don't know, it's quite a big head. This is just a much more compact shape. Obviously, it is still more elongated than the 3, but just a much nicer shape, nicer look behind the ball. Just looks really clean and nice. And obviously, even from the top, really good visual update. Again, similar to the 3 in terms of the design of it. Obviously, we haven't got the kind of weight track at the back. We'll touch on that later. And it's a little bit longer, but very similar finish, similar design. Just looks super sleek, sexy, really nice. I think this is probably the biggest change in terms of the line so far. Obviously, the 3, like I said, we didn't expect to be much different, but the 2 is, yeah, it's good. You put it down and you just think, yeah, I could definitely play that, you know, which is what we want. Just about to say, especially if it does that, but just caught it a bit off the bottom and it just spun up a touch. But it ain't bad. It ain't bad. Yeah, just a fraction out the bottom, just knocked that spin up to 31.40. I'm just going to change the T height because that's, I never use that T. It's a wee bit low. So let's talk about these heads in theory then. So the 2 is always, or would always be seen as more forgiving. Now, forgiveness is always kind of a bit more of a complex subject than I think a lot of people make out. It's not one-dimensional, but if we talk about specifically the one dimension that most people will probably reference, even if you ask an amateur golfer what is forgiveness, they probably just say, getting away with it a bit more, which is kind of what it is. For the most part, we're talking moment of inertia, right? So there is multiple dimensions, but the one main one is going to be with these heads, the TSR2 versus 3, for example, the 2 is more pulled back, elongated mass. Further back, lower, kind of the further back we pull the CG, the higher the MOI. So MOI, moment of inertia, is essentially resistance to twisting, basically. So when we do hit it all over the face is going to gear and twist slightly less. So therefore, we should then, in theory, get shots that are kept a little bit straighter. So that's, and maybe retain a touch more ball speed and things like that. But on the whole, the idea of that is kind of wanting to keep it in play. Great, fine. Maybe it'll twist a little bit less, but a lot of amateurs go, I need a forgiving driver because I hit it everywhere. Well, for the most part, it's your delivery as well, right? It's, as always, if you're delivering it 8 outside and the path 6 open, it's not going to matter what drive you've got. It's always going to do that, right? Always. It doesn't matter. And I mean, touching on that briefly, the MOI being higher and the CG being further back, the further back that the kind of mass is generally pulled, typically the slightly higher the closure rate can be in terms of the face wanting to close a little bit easier. Normally the further forward the CG, kind of the harder it is to get that face closing. So with the mass being further back, it may make it a little bit easier to get that face turning through impact as well. So then in theory, maybe make it a little more draw biasy. So yeah, that's what they'd be referencing, right? So just higher MOI, more forgiveness on off-center hits. If you make a rubbish swing, it's a rubbish swing, right? There's only so much the club's going to be able to do. Getting that strike actually felt good, but I just feel like I'm getting a bit underneath it. Just spinning up. I wouldn't grumble at either of those, to be completely honest. That strike was better. So the problem is tee height. Tee it higher or hit up more, which I don't want to do. Yeah, good strike. So again, we can see that for a little fade, which I don't mind that. That's tended to be my kind of shot that I'm going towards now. 15.5 launch, bit much. 2900 spin, bit much. I'd probably be better teeing it off that low tee, to be honest, and trying to sting it down there a bit and accepting the higher spin off the bottom strike. But, you know, that... It's pretty good. It's pretty good. These drivers always tend to be super, super efficient. We'll see as we go through on off-center hits, they tend to be very, very good. The really interesting thing in this test is going to be, well, how much less forgiving do I actually think the 3 is? Because if it's anything like the last generation, it was so good. And again, if you've watched my previous video with the TSR3 versus TSI3, it's just so good on miss hits. Like, it was really hard for me to say that I genuinely thought that the 2 was much more forgiving than the 3, because the 3 was just so good. So what I'll try and do as I'm going through is give you examples. I'm just going to show you, it won't be as many shots as the last video, but it will still be a few examples of bad shots, and then explain how I think that that's done. And that hopefully should help us reference which one is maybe more forgiving than the other as we go through. And obviously examples of good shots as well to see how it performs out the middle. And that's what I'll do at the end as well in terms of the data set. As I normally do, I will compare without deleting any shots to give like an overall kind of how the club performed without taking bad ones out. And then I will take the bad ones out to see actually how these clubs perform head to head when struck in the middle, to see what the spin and launch difference is and all that, those kind of things. And obviously these are both 9-degree heads. They're both set at C1. I'm using my shaft, which is the Ventus Black 6X, which I've got a Titleist tip on now. So yeah, both the same loft at the same setting, same shaft, so no difference at all there. It's just going to be the heads, because I see some tests sometimes and they go, oh, TSI2 at 10 and a TSI3 at 9. But well, no, don't do that. Like, just get the same loft. It's a bit of an unfair test then, isn't it, really? So I'll show you a few more with each, and then we'll move on. Again, definitely just getting under it, like it's launching up, it's spinning up. I mean, it's a really safe shot, but a little bit necky in all fairness. Yeah, it's just a lot of launch and a lot of spin, but that again is more me, to be completely honest, not really the driver. Although one thing that I will be probably getting and testing is they've done this in an 8-degree head now, which I think is an awesome move by Titleist. Because I generally see people, most amateurs, if anything, struggle with spin, so spin it too much. But again, in theory, we want that slightly more forgiving head. So on a scale thing from Titleist, I think that's a great thing, because more people are going to go, well, I kind of want a more forgiving head, but maybe need that lower launch. So go 8-degree TSR2. Like, it could be a really good option for a lot of people. Oh, wow, that was dreadful. And that is unreal, isn't it? Go on, carry that rough. Go on. Actually, that compared to some of the other shots was pretty much the same. So this would be, yeah, I mean, that felt not great. That was low heel. Maybe not super low heel, but low enough heel. It's done really well. Wouldn't expect anything different. I mean, 143 efficiency, that's great from a low heel strike. Spun at 2800 actually it's not bad for a low heel strike, considering some of the other ones were 3000, but that was me getting more underneath, delivering more loft, and therefore it spun more. See the variables in this game. Again, that's just like not a great strike. Carry! There we go, I actually carried. That was a semi-decent shot, there we go. Again, that didn't feel like a great strike. No, it's like low. Low, 385 carry. I mean, just can't grumble. That was horrendous. That was dreadful. There's an example of a bad one. Utilising that forgiveness. Yeah, I mean, I'm not hitting it much worse than that. Like 15 mil heel, 9 mil low. And what have we ended up? 8 yards offline. I mean, again, face of path's going to come into that massively. Like if you had the face that was a little bit more open, then you would have been screwed, regardless of the driver. But I mean, 293 down the middle of the fairway with that strike. Now all I need to do is actually try and find the middle to show you one of those. But today, that seems to be a struggle, I must admit. That was just, again, low heel. Oh dear. Oh, we love that. We love that strike. Look how consistent that strike is, though. Just low in the head. I mean, to be honest, you can't grumble. Like, I'm not out of play on any of these, which for a hole this tight, that's just one down the left, which is borderline kind of, you're probably knocking out. But it's very straight. Actually felt a bit better, maybe. Low on the face again. Yeah. $7 mil low. Seems to be 28, 2900 kind of range on a low strike. The next one I'm going to show you will be out the middle. It will take me a while, but I will get one. Oh, okay, I take that back. I was going to hit one worse. I was going to hit one worse than previous. That was bad. That was really bad. Look at that. Nearly missed that. That was not good. It appears to be that I can't find the middle of the face at all. This driver is definitely not the driver. It's definitely me, but that's 20 shots now with this. So I'm going to hit one more. Otherwise I'll be knackered by the time I get to the TSR3. But I mean, look at that. I mean, literally 17 mil low, 15 mil in the hill. You saw that strike. It was horrendous. Still kind of carried 263 and went dead straight. I mean, that's pretty remarkable, really, isn't it, to be honest? Right, let's hit one more. There we go. That actually felt pretty good. Turned it over. Oh, stay right at that tree. Ah, beautiful. Easy shot in. That was one of the better strikes. There we go. It's close to the middle. I pretty much tested the entire face of this driver apart from the middle. That's 22 shots, and that's probably the second one I reckon it was anywhere near the middle of the face. On the whole, it's been pretty incredible, to be honest. Again, I've not been hitting it well, and the dispersion's been great. I've been getting away with lows. Like, would I say it's a forgiving driver? Yeah, 100%. Right, into the TSR3. And again, obviously, we've got that super, super classic players look down by the ball. Beautiful shape. I mean, you just really can't grumble at the look of this driver. It's just so good. But as I said, compared to the two, it's actually really improved so much, the two. You can notice a difference, but it's not like, wow, that's incredible. Like, it just looks way different. It's not. Then, as I said, they've done a great job with the two this year. So the whole kind of theory around the marketing, I guess I would say, between these two drivers. That's a pretty good start. Straight away found the middle with this one, which is interesting. Great shot down there at nearly 320. Again, good numbers. Funny enough, pretty much exactly the same numbers I was finding yesterday when I was hitting this in terms of spin. Good efficiency. Yeah, so again, the marketing within the kind of forgiveness element of these drivers. The TSR2 having the single weight back, again, more elongated head, increasing the MOI, therefore for the person that hits it more all over the face, the whole overall MOI is just increased and therefore more forgiving everywhere. Whereas this with the kind of inertia shifter or weight track system in the 3, you've got more of a consistent strike pattern, consistent strike miss. You can therefore align the kind of mass with where your strike miss is to stabilize up that specific point if you're more consistent. And again, with it being more kind of a stubby front to back kind of profile, the CG being a little bit closer to the face. Therefore, in theory, we should obviously see slightly lower spin rates, all those kind of things. So maybe a little bit more distance, but less MOI, unless you strike it in that same position. And then you can kind of, again, align the mass with where you're striking, get a little bit more. And how much difference that actually makes, again, you'd have to do a shed load of testing to actually kind of figure that out. But again, in theory, a little bit more weight behind the strike point is going to be a good thing. Completely forgot what I was going to say, but there's some more. Oh yeah, I was just going to say that I've got the weight just set in the middle, neutral of this one, just to kind of align with the TSR2. Just more of a neutral setup, I guess, which is never a bad thing. Interestingly, that was actually a little high on the face. Don't mind it though. Again, decent result. Slightly down the left, but yeah, a little bit higher heel. She spun up a little bit, which is good like that. It feels way worse than it does show on that kind of graphic, as I always say. Again, for that strike, that result's great. 19 yards offline and carried 285. Like, it's brilliant. It's going to be hard to obviously quantify the forgiveness, which is always what I'm trying to do, but if it's anything like last year, I had a really hard time believing that the 2 was more forgiving than the 3. Like, the 3 was just such a forgiving driver. As I said in my last video that I did both 3s, TSR3 versus TSI3, like, man, you can hit some bad shots and get away with it. Like, really bad. Obviously, you make a bad swing, it's going offline, that's face to path. Like, I'm sure I'll get somewhere, I'm swinging a little bit out to in, the face will be a bit squared to the path, it will go straight left. Nothing to do with the club. Absolutely nothing to do with the club. So when you get a really horrendous one, you look up, it's still going dead straight. And the more impressive thing with these is the efficiency still retains and you still get a decent amount of yardage out of them as well, which is just unbelievably good. Like that one there, actually struck it really well. Just squared up that. That was a really good strike, that. 146 efficiency. Don't see many 146s. Again, that's really interesting that straight away, again, I feel like I'm putting 11 launch, 23 backspin, that's quite nice. Putting the exact same swing on them, but I'm finding a different strike location on the head. And that could well be me just kind of tracking CG maybe, if it's a little bit higher up the face in this versus a little bit lower and further back in the 2. And I'm just managing to find strike better with the 3 so far, because I clearly am. Again, that did not feel good. Like, that's probably pretty similar to some of the ones I was hitting earlier with the TSR2. Whereas a little bit low heely. Efficiency still really good, 143. Spins up at 3,000. Yep. But safe, nearly 300 yards down the fairway, only 13 yards offline. It's great. Like, off the face, I think they feel basically the same. I don't think that the TSR2 feels more stable than the 3. Like, when you hit it, it doesn't feel like it's giving you any more stability. I know it's a bit of a weird thing to say. You wouldn't maybe expect there to be, or some of you might expect there to be, I don't know. But they feel pretty much the same. I think if you put a blindfold on, I don't think I would be able to tell you which one I was hitting, to be honest. Again, I don't even notice really that they look that much different behind the ball, because I'm looking at the ball. The shape isn't that much different that I notice it that much, which is good. They've definitely really closed the gap on these drivers, and it's going to be really interesting to see the numbers, obviously, between the 2. Again, I'm finding it way easier to like strike this. Okay, it's going a little down the left, but it's just a really tight fairway, so it's worse than it looks. Definitely easier to strike it. Yeah, strike pattern's grouping in a better position. Still a little bit low, so we see that spin creep up to 27. Efficiency really good. I can grumble at that. So see if I can show you a couple of really bad ones. I'm sure I'll get them. probably one of the best swings of the day, that. So I think that's worth showing and seeing what the numbers on that are. So that was right out of the screws with this, which was a good indicator of how the head would perform. Yeah, 15 launch, 24.68, efficiency good, 297 carry. Well, that's a good one. Still got to get these bad ones. That wasn't good. That wasn't good. That was low heel. Yeah, it's basically done the same. She's not going to grumble, are you? That was low and necky. Yep. So right down low in the heel. Spin comes up to 32. We expect that. Efficiency actually still unreal at 1.43. That's ridiculous. It's really good. So yeah, apart from it spinning up a little bit, I mean, nice little fade, finishing 6 yards offline, finishing at 297. I don't know, I just can't say that I genuinely feel that the TSR3 is less forgiving than the TSR2. I think it's just a ridiculously good driver. Whew, right, I am pooped. To be honest, ended up hitting about 60, just over 60 shots. I just kept flicking back and forward, back and forward, back and forward, just to keep it fair, hit loads of shots to get a really good data set. I have deleted probably a couple with each that were just really bad tired swings, like just bad. But this is a really good average representation, I feel, behind me of how these heads performed overall. So TSR3, TSR2, so we saw ball speed pretty much on par. I maybe saw me getting a tiny bit out of the TSR3 from time to time, a tiny bit more, but not much. I felt like I just got on a little bit better with the TSR3, to be honest. As you probably saw, the strike pattern I feel was a bit better. It was a little bit more consistent. Every time I kept going back to the 2, I just felt I was struggling for whatever reason. Don't know what that was. So we see the TSR2 launch and spin a little bit higher, as we would expect. But it's kind of, what's that, 0.6 of a degree higher launch. And then really, I mean, 150-ish revs of backspin, which isn't loads, really, is it? When you think about it, you'd probably think that there would be more than that. And actually, every time I was going through, I kept like just trying to see what was that. That was a good delivery. That was a good strike. What numbers were they? And I do reckon there was a 250 rev difference, I would say, between these two heads, somewhere around that. But 200-ish wouldn't be too far away. So yeah, launch and spun a little bit higher, obviously the TSR2. And then the carry difference only gave me 3 yards more on average. So that's not a massive difference. Obviously the ball speed pretty tight. Launched and spun a bit more, but it was marginal, and that ended up being a 3-yard carry difference on average. You can see across the board though, the carry distance, it was much tighter with the TSR3. Ball speed was tighter, launch was the same, spin was tighter. It was all just tighter with the TSR3 for me. And again, that was no other reason than I just got on better with it. I just found it easier to find strike with that head. Don't know why, genuinely don't know why. Something within the internal head kind of weighting I would suggest maybe, or maybe it suited my eye a little better, don't know. But I just got on with it better. So you can see the dispersion, left to right probably weren't much in it, to be honest, but front to back, the TSR3 was a lot more consistent. And again, please do remember this obviously is for me, so could be the opposite for you. So you can see swing speed, same, 114, efficiency, same. Dynamic loft, 0.2 in it, which is pretty mental, really, but 0.2 in it. Dynamic lie, 0.3 in it. The delivery was slightly different, but I generally don't believe that was anything to do with the clubs. I think that was me. Every video, I'm always working on my swing. I'm always tinkering with feels. And yeah, I feel like I was just changing a little bit throughout the video, which I know is not ideal, but you know, you can see actually from an angle of attack and a delivered loft perspective, it was pretty good. I mean, I hit up a little bit more on the TSR2, but again, from a loft perspective, actually delivered less on average, which is certainly interesting. And then the average strike as well was basically the same. I mean, so from a delivery perspective, I know I got a little bit more inside with the TSR2, and the face angle on average was a bit open to that. So whereas the opposite, I was a little bit out to in and a little bit closed with the TSR2, so that could possibly be where some of the spin differences were. But I was a little bit more up and inside with the TSR2, so up and inside, and then on average leaving the face open. That's probably going to create a little bit more of a lower strike pattern, and we're obviously going to see that kind of going right, which generally tends to spin up a little bit as well. Whereas if I was slightly less up, slightly more out to in, with the face slightly more closed, with the TSR3, obviously that will create slightly different dynamics, but I mean, we can see it within the launch and spin. It's kind of what I did see, to be honest, on good shots. So I feel that is a good representation. So now I'm going to delete the bad shots and really try and tighten in this data set to see exactly how these perform off good shots. Right, okay, so bad ones deleted, and yeah, we can see that obviously tightens up a lot in terms of the dispersion, but it's a pretty similar pattern, really, and I do think this is a good representation of how these heads perform based on me just hitting 60 shots, 30-ish maybe with both. Got a little bit more ball speed out of the TSR3, it's just less than a mile an hour, and I don't necessarily think that it's a quicker face or anything like that, or the CG had anything to do with that, to be honest. I think I just got on with the TSR3 better. I think I was just hitting it better. Launch, obviously, we still see TSR3 a little bit lower by 0.7 of a degree. We see the spin down by, I mean, 26 to 24. Obviously, it's just less than 200 revs. But again, I would say that's a pretty good kind of accurate representation of how that would perform. I generally would think it would be about 200 revs of spin between these two heads. And carry, we saw 294 with the TSR3 versus 290 with the TSR2. So that slightly more ball speed, slightly lower launch, slightly lower spin got me 4 yards of carry distance. So yeah, I really do feel that is a good representation of how those heads perform. So let's kind of sum up and get my thoughts on the forgiveness front. Right, so I hope you enjoyed that video. Another in-depth look head-to-head of two drivers, the new TSR2 and TSR3. Both unbelievable drivers. Like the 2 and the 3, or the old 2 and the 3 were obviously unbelievable. The new 2 and the 3 are unbelievable. Like they've just really upped their driver game. Obviously, Titleist since TS were a really good step in the right direction, and the TSI were phenomenal, I think. And now the TSR, obviously, they've just continued with that staggering performance and just overall brilliant drivers. So to sum up in terms of forgiveness, I mean, do I genuinely think and believe that the TSR3 is less forgiving than the TSR2 in terms of off-center hits around the face? No, not really, no. I just didn't feel like I got any more punished on the 3, and this isn't just from today. This is from years of fitting experience with the old 2 and 3, and it was the same. Like I had people coming in going, "Oh, the 3 is the player's driver. I can't hit that. Like I'm just not a good enough player." I got them hitting it, and every time I would let them hit 2, hit 3, hit 2, hit 3. Like, do you genuinely believe that that's less forgiving? No. And again, forgiveness isn't one-dimensional. It's not necessarily just about striking on the face. It's your miss and all those things as well. So don't necessarily just think of it as I need a bit of help across the face. But I didn't get any more punished with the 3 than the 2. If anything, I found it easier to hit the 3 than the 2. Something about it just gelled with me, clicked with me better. I managed to find strike better. It was more consistent. The numbers were better. It was just a better driver for me. I just struggled with the 2. Every time I went back to it, hit nice shots with the 3, went back to the 2, and it was a bit iffy, to be honest. Like, something about it just didn't click with me. And this is the whole thing with fitting. Theory's great, theory's brilliant, theory rarely plays out. You just got to get in the bay, you've got to hit it, you've got to get it in your hand, see how you react to it, and we need to find something that just clicks with you. For whatever reason, most of the time I don't care, it just works. Like, it just gels. So yeah, 2 phenomenal drivers. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it was in depth enough. I feel it was a good representation of how they're performing from what I was seeing. And yeah, stay tuned. We've still got lots more to come. We're still going to be doing fairway woods. I'm going to get a TSR4. I'm doing some 3-4-2 stuff. Yeah, fairway woods. I'm sure there'll be hybrids at some point soon as well. Still got loads of other stuff to do. Head-to-heads with those versus the other drivers. It's a lot to do, and I'm tired. So please stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.